but how do you overcome the fear? Because I got to overcome the fear to go on that river again.
Yeah.
That's a class 4 rapid that I really want to do, but I got to overcome that fear. And I think what I've learned through all my experiences is, for me, training overcomes fear.
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk to you about. See, because I wanted to like,
Anything I do that I've done without some serious research or training behind it.
yeah, and that's the key, right? So I
Mhm.
wanted to kind of talk about all of your adventures, most of your stories, because I think you have a lot of stories where there's probably 95% of the population would say, no, I don't want to do that. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Go Grava channel. I'm Aaron Johnson, founder and CEO of Grava Adventure Corporation. Today, I have a great interview from a person I know from the Marine Corps that I served with, Aaron States. And the reason I wanted to interview Aaron States is because his life has kind of been an adventure, at least as long as I've known him. And he has many different topics and many different subjects that we can actually talk about. Matter of fact, we'll probably have more to talk about than we actually have time for this YouTube video. But the one key theme here I think I want to talk with Aaron about is how to overcome fear. And so we're going to kind of get into that because every adventure is has a level of fear to it depending on what you're doing. And having the ability to overcome that fear is kind of important. And everybody's fear level may be different according to the person. So let's get to it, and let me introduce add Aaron here. Welcome, Aaron. Thanks for joining me at the
Thanks for
Grava
having me.
YouTube. Yeah, no problem. Grava YouTube channel. So, Aaron, I kind of gave you an introduction there, and I have to say, like, I have always followed you on Facebook because you're just always doing interesting shit. Like, have you always been this adventurous in your life all the time as a kid, all the way into adulthood?
I think it probably started somewhere around age 10. I went to a friend's birthday party and I caught my first wave at the beach. And then I was also the youngest of three older brothers who all had friends. And I got woken up during the summertime by being picked up and thrown into the pool. But you got to understand that we lived 2 floors up in an apartment. And they had to drag me downstairs to get me in this pool. So yeah, I kind of was thrown into it at a young age, I think.
Yeah, so being the youngest boy might make you more adventurous, actually.
I had to survive.
Yeah, you had to survive. So one of the interesting things that I know when you were in the Marine Corps, you left the Marine Corps, and I hadn't got in contact with you again until I was in Afghanistan, and found out you were working as a contractor in Afghanistan. And I see the pups running around there. They're excited.
Yeah, he's going ham. He's 9 months old. That's what he does.
Ah, yeah, he likes running around. So when you were in Afghanistan as a contractor, you're working for that balloon program, which I think it was like what, a radio communication thing.
It was surveillance.
Yeah, surveillance. Yeah, doing surveillance. Now I've known about those balloons a long time because they actually had them in Yuma, Arizona, for border control. And
Right.
you'd always see them in Yuma. So I kind of knew that they were for surveillance or radar or whatever. That had to be something a bit unnerving. Was that unnerving going to Afghanistan out of the military as a contractor, like wondering if anybody's got your back or anything?
It was. I didn't have a super hard introduction to Afghanistan. I went to Kandahar first, so it was similar to being like at Al Assad. And then I went to another base where there wasn't a lot of action. It was another main base for the Danish, and so I really didn't see a whole lot of action my first 6 months. So at that point, it was just exciting from an engineering perspective of like learning how to use this huge equipment and all the cameras and the generators and everything that was on it. And then once, fortunately, I was proficient at it, then I got into situations where we were seeing combat, and it was exhilarating for a lot of reasons. I mean, the guys you're high fiving, you're watching go out the gate on the camera and go get in, scrub elbows out there, like so. So it's intense on that level, but then at the same time, we were both meteorologists. You're flying in the lower level of the atmosphere. That's where all the weather happens.
Yeah.
And as a general rule, these things fly for a really long time. So you're going to launch in nice, clean, calm weather, but you're never going to land like that. You're going to land in winds that are right on the edge of limitations, maybe past it. People are running around trying to grab ropes, screaming at each other, and it gets really intense. So it's intense for a lot of reasons. you're in a bad place, those things do get shot at. Sometimes you're underneath them when that happens. And
Were you ever worried about being a civilian, like a contractor over there at all, or because
no, no,
no,
because one, I wasn't allowed to go out of the gate and go on patrols. I mean
yeah,
that wasn't authorized. We're there. We have rules to follow, right? But at the same time, those rules that were in play, I didn't have to worry because if a wire was actually being breached, I was
yeah.
allowed to arm myself.
Oh, okay.
So, and every base you went to, there was some lieutenant or a captain going, "There's an M1A behind the counter. There's M16s over here." Like, so the way I looked at it, I was like, "Sweet, I don't have to do any gun maintenance.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't have
That's
to carry
true.
it with me." Like, so for the most part, I mean, yeah, you never. I wasn't worried about that. It was still dangerous. I mean, it's still scary. A
Well,
lot of times.
I think you had an advantage because coming out of the Marine Corps, going into as a contractor over there in a combat zone, you probably are a bit more prepared than the average person. you know.
Shoot, you want to know the truth? Chris Benson lied to me. He said it was safer than Iraq, and I was like, "This will be a breeze."
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I'm
So,
not kidding. He's the one who talked me into it being safe as
oh, did he?
contract over there. Yeah, he's like, "Oh, you'll be fine, man."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I miss Chris, man.
yeah, great dude.
Yeah, he was a great guy. So you left there, and then you, what was your next job? Because you're like an electric maintenance guy.
So in between contracting and the Marine Corps, I actually went to hard hat diving school. I got out of the Marine Corps because I just wanted to surf basically on the beach in San Diego, which I did. I got some great surf for a few years, and I used my GI Bill to go to hard hat diving school and learn how to be a dive medic. And then so that was 2 years of school, and then I worked the industry for a couple of years. And that industry, as awesome as it sounds like great pay. The reality is nobody's digging new wells in the ocean. So the work is hard to get. It's seasonal. It's weather dependent, and you
Hmm.
got to be doing it for a long time before you're really a careerist at it.
Well,
And
I tell you one thing. Let's talk about diving because that's one thing I will not do. it's, there is a lot of fear with, like, to me at least, going down. Like, I don't mind snorkeling. I don't mind going under the water or anything. I am a great swimmer, all that stuff. But it's this idea of being down far enough where if you lose oxygen, you're not going to make it to the top, kind of thing. Did you have any fear like that? Now, maybe not because you're always in the ocean, always
well,
surfing.
but I didn't. I mean, I can remember not being able to swim as a kid. And I can remember my mom forgot my arm floaties at a pool party one time. This was the Thompson's house. We always go swimming at the Thompson's house. And I wasn't able to go swimming because I didn't have my arm floaties. And I remember all the other kids playing in the pool and having fun. And I just gave in. And I ran and I jumped in. And I vaguely remember all the adults going, freaking out. And I sank right to the bottom because I didn't know how to swim. And before I could even react, one of my brothers had already pulled me out.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what had occurred. I don't even really remember sinking. I don't remember being scared. So I don't know. I was never really scared around water.
Yeah.
So to be
Yeah.
underwater and diving, especially with the hard hat commercial diving, I've got this giant helmet on my head. I've
Yeah.
got back up to back up to back up to air. I'm actually a little freaked out to scuba dive now after doing hard hat diving because you're not going to run out of air if you're doing construction diving. That's not going to happen.
Ah, okay.
There's fail safe for fail safe for fail safe. Scuba, you got one tank. That's a little creepy.
Yeah, that's creepy to me. That's I have a
It's a
problem
little
with it.
creepy. It's a
It's
little creepy.
jumping out of airplanes and scuba diving deep. I'm just not interested in those adventures.
Scuba says, hey, you got a backup regulator. And I'm like, yeah, but it comes from the same tank.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. And then also another interesting thing you did was you were working on those giant windmills, electric
Yeah.
generating windmills. Right now,
Well, wind,
you
wind
have
turbines because
wind turbines.
they make power, not flour.
Yeah, turbines. Okay, yeah, not, I got it. I will never forget that now.
But
I'm
really
gonna.
put it in perspective, because a mill is just something that's going to turn and grind, right? A
Yep.
turbine is a machine. There's a generator up there. There's capacitor banks that you have to be very careful with when you're working with, because if those discharge and you don't want them to, you could get seriously injured.
Yeah,
So
and so
yeah,
you were working on those things. I'm gonna pull up. like one of these diagrams here. See if I can show it. How
They're massive.
tall?
They're
Yeah,
340 feet tall. They're making them bigger.
yeah. I don't think people, unless you've seen it in person, like I don't know that anybody you can really appreciate how big
Massive.
these things are. Like, see, that's let me get a different view here. See if I can get in a bit closer to. I got a pop up window. Let me see
The
if I can get.
turbine blades are longer than most airplane wings. And
Yeah,
I think that's what tripped most people out because most people have flown on an airplane, so they can
yep.
say, "Oh, I know what an airplane wing is," and a wind turbine blade is significantly bigger than an airplane wing.
So these like onshore turbines, we're talking like 89 meters to 103 meters up. What is like the? So you had to climb this, right?
Right? It's not as bad as it sounds. You got to remember we live in a world with OSHA, so the climbing up is actually really safe. And most of them have a motorized assist. And once
Mm-hmm.
they reach a certain level, they have to have an elevator installed because nobody has the knees that can withstand that kind of climbing up and down.
Oh, so these things have elevators?
Or what we call a climb assist. So it's a rope that you connect to your harness that actually takes like 70 pounds off you and helps you climb up.
Ah, okay.
So
Okay.
when,
That
and
doesn't sound so bad now.
when you're in shape, you can climb up to the top of one in 3.5 minutes, and you're not even breaking a sweat.
Ah, okay. Because
So
that's but you still
yeah,
so let me ask you this then because here again this is why I always follow you because this is another thing. Like if I was at top of a wind turbine, do you I guess do you get used to looking down and seeing how far that is
you
and not
do.
getting freaked out?
You do, but there's still situations, right? So I'll give you a couple examples of climbing situations where you really have to, overcome that fear if you're going to complete the job, right? So on a couple of jobs, I got to replace the whole blades. You have the hub, and then there's three blades that stick out of it. You got to replace a whole blade. Well, in this one particular wind turbine, you don't enter the hub from the giant square piece on the back called the nacelle that's underneath the tube that you climb up in. You have to enter it from the nose. Think of it like a airplane propeller. You got to enter
Mm-hmm.
it this giant hatch in the nose. Well, how do you get there? You got to climb to get there, right? So the actual propeller holder, the hub, has a shroud around it. And when all three blades are in, you can climb into that shroud and it's no big deal. There's nowhere for you to fall. It's a tight
Yep.
squeeze, but you can make it. Well, remove one of those blades and then you have to crawl in and you're 360 feet up in the air. There's half a gigantic piece of round steel that I'm climbing over with bolt studs sticking out of it. And my arm and leg is dangling 360 feet up. And like, maybe you get used to that. I don't know. I climb slowly there, and you're using fall protection. So you got like your hooks,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to climb as a team. You got to clip in front. The first guy's got to actually do like a turnover, and then someone's got to clip behind him, and then he unclips the next guy that comes through. It takes a little bit to get into those positions. The
I bet it does, man. Like
the blade workers don't get the credit they should. I was a technician. I worked inside. I can do the generator. I can do the electronic, the
mhm.
mechanics. I fix all of it. I never got to climb on the blades. The fiberglass workers that climb the blades, those guys can climb.
I gotta say though, that's a job like you wouldn't want to come in hungover on or something like that. Like
You were in the Corps. Do you think that stops people?
I don't know, man, because like you're up there, I'd want to be at 100%, like a hundred
Yeah.
percent every time.
I
Uh,
worked. I worked with a lead one time who was not 100% all the time, and it was sketchy to work with that guy.
yeah, I
You're,
bet,
you're,
man.
you're in that kind of environment and he's not taking it seriously, and that's nobody wants that. Nobody
Did
wants
you,
that.
so? Let me ask: Did you ever like lose your grip and have to use the safety harness and fell a little bit?
No,
No. Okay.
no, not even the one time I can think of where I was told to do it. I was actually interviewing for a job to be a climb instructor for industrial climbing,
Yeah.
and I'd already done a bunch of zip line tour guiding. That's how I knew how to do these rescues. And for the final part, the instructors like dropped the dummy, and I was like, I called all stop because I knew my
Yeah.
partner rigged it wrong. I was like, all stop, and I'm interviewing for the job. The other guys are actually taking the class, and Jimmy, one of the instructors, he gives me a grin and he goes, do it. And that, those full pound weighted 180-pound dummies, that thing thudded from 2 stories up.
Ooh,
Oops. Good thing it was a dummy.
man, that would be scary to see that too. To hear that thud, boom.
Oh, I knew
You're
it
like,
was coming. I knew it was coming because it was
yeah,
really fun. I was like, wait, no, stop. And nothing like learning by mistake, though. And that's something that's kind of
yeah,
cool with those climb classes. If you got a good instructor, if there's a safe mistake,
yeah,
take it and learn.
yeah, yeah, man. So with all of that, and you're also done mountain biking and uh, backpacking, and right now I think you're a big like kayaker, right? Like
Huge
you're
fan
doing
of
some
whitewater kayaking. Huge.
whitewater kayaking. You're in Colorado too, so you got like
Right.
lots of options, man.
And I actually don't even live in the best place for it. I live in Colorado Springs, and there's better places to live in Colorado for whitewater. But
Yep.
my worst case scenario is I have to drive an hour. That ain't so bad.
I would tell you, so I had one experience with whitewater and it wasn't even that bad. But when you are on a raft in a river and you see that water and it's actually higher than your head, your viewpoint when you're going down in, that to me brings a lot of fear. Like that is some adrenaline you get. But it's got to be even seem even bigger in a kayak, like because you're so low to the water.
It does. It seems bigger for certain, and the anxiety level is higher too. Um, it's when you go upside down in a kayak, you really are locked. You're not permanently locked in there, but you are upside down. If
Hmm.
you're on a raft, a stand-up paddleboard, or anything else, when you eject from your craft, you're immediately floating.
Yeah,
Kayak, you're in a position where you're exposed to injury if you're not in big water. A lot of people get to kayak in big water, and they don't have rocks. In Colorado, we wait for the snow to melt, and we ride what melts down. And then when it
yeah.
gets really low, we're dodging rocks all the time. So we beat up our boats pretty quick. Occasionally, we beat up our helmets. I cracked my helmet last season, and you know,
Wow. Yeah.
it's you have to know what you're getting into. I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't listen to my body, and I was too fatigued, and I went anyways, and I wasn't reacting fast enough. Got upside down. But how do you overcome the fear? Because I got to overcome the fear to go on that river again.
Yeah.
That's a class 4 rapid that I really want to do, but I got to overcome that fear. And I think what I've learned through all my experiences is, for me, training overcomes fear.
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk to you about. See, because I wanted to like,
Anything I do that I've done without some serious research or training behind it.
yeah, and that's the key, right? So
For
I
me,
wanted to kind of talk about all of your adventures, most of your stories, because I think you have a lot of stories where there's probably 95% of the population would say, "No, I don't want to do that."
what I found really funny is when I got into wind turbines, I was like, for anybody that wants to get into wind turbines, if you want to work hard, that's a great industry to get into. My
Hmm.
back is not young enough to work that industry anymore. I work in a
Yeah,
nice air conditioned lab now and I like it, but I was hitting up all my dive friends that don't have a lot of work. And I was like, you guys, our skill set crosses over. And come to find out, all my friends that are willing to dive 300-400 feet under the ocean are scared of heights.
yeah, yeah.
I had no idea.
Well, so go Grava. So what I'm trying to do is help like average people at least be more adventurous in some ways.
Yeah, there you go.
And what I do or what you do, you've been a bit more adventurous than me, I'd say. But what I'm trying to express or trying to figure out is trying to communicate some important messages. And I think one of the messages I wanted to do with you is overcoming fear, because something that we may find easy to do may create a lot of fear in a person who hasn't done something before. As simple as if you have like a person who wants to go for a hike by themselves in the woods, how would they even go, how do they and they're fearful of that, of being lone outdoors. How would you overcome these sort of fears? And I think what you said, which is practice. It's practice and also probably teamwork, maybe.
Yeah.
Bring a buddy.
I mean, I've done some climbs that are absolutely insane, but if you put me on the edge of something I can fall off of and I don't have fall protection on, I can feel my body change, my nervous system kick in.
Yeah. Yeah. And then safety. Safety is always, I
That's
think,
because I'm trained to know my equipment and the limitations.
yeah. So I think when you're
That's
being
yeah.
being adventurous, I think the one thing is at least planning, thinking about what you're about to do. So let's say we were going to go out and go for a hike in the mountains of Colorado. Maybe your first time out, you wouldn't want to go by yourself.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not. I think if I had a recommendation for somebody who is like, I really want to get into hiking, but I don't know about it. I'm not sure what to do. I don't even know if I can handle it. I would recommend the book In a Sunburned Country by Bill Bryson. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't.
Bill Bryson has no business athletically taking a hike anywhere, but he does. And he tells you all about it, and he talks about his different adventures. He's the guy that also wrote All Along an Appalachian Trail.
Ah, okay. I've heard of that.
I thought In a Sunburned Country was even funnier. But the point is, I mean, he calls himself like he is. He's kind of an out of shape, overweight guy, but he goes out and adventures, and a lot of his adventures are just going on walks.
And that's the kind of point I'm trying to make a bit at Grava is that let's say you're a person that let's say you're stuck in a rut. You're working, you're getting home, you're not doing anything, you're on social media too much. I think the first step in becoming more adventurous is just to get out of your house and go for a walk. That
Absolutely.
or get that dust, break that dust off your bicycle and go ride around town because when you're outside walking or on a bicycle, you start seeing things that you never see from a car. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know there was an ice cream shop. Yeah, it's so true.
I tour guided a lot when I got out of the Marine Corps. There's a place called Hike, Bike, Kayak, and we did a lot of biking. And favorite slogan wasn't even from that company. We got like third partied out to another company that needed tour guides, and we all got these T-shirts that had a mountain bike dirt stripe going right down the middle, and it said "Slow down to see the world."
Yeah.
And I thought that was so accurate. Like, and you get outside and you walk, and you get on a bicycle, and you'll slow down, and you'll see the world at a different pace, not the pace that social media is at, or the news channels are at, just the pace that your neighbor is also at walking down the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that's a great start because if anybody who wasn't an outdoors person or outdoors much, and they wanted to get into hiking, I would say the first thing you need to do is start walking around your neighborhood and get comfortable walking, figuring out, where your backpack and do some planning. And I think that's where me and you being in the military, it comes so easy to us, like planning.
But it's easy, but we've been doing it for years, so we'll skip the simple thing right away that the person who's never gone hiking around their neighborhood is going to find out. What underwear works and doesn't work for you walking around the neighborhood. It might not be the same stuff that works on your bicycle.
Or true, like
important things if you want to be comfortable out doing adventurous stuff.
Yeah, or cotton shirts versus tech shirts. Like,
yeah,
get caught with a cotton shirt when the wind's blowing and it's 55 degrees, and you're going to figure out what cold really feels like.
so yeah, you do. You got to just get out your front door and go walk around your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Springtime, you'd be surprised how many of your neighbors have gardens. That's the thing you can do too. Plant some flowers in your front yard in a tiny little flower bed because you've got to go outside every day to water it.
Yes. Yes. Getting outside is so important. And then when you want to do more things, I think overcoming fear is really done through practice and training. That's it.
And acknowledgement of fear.
Yes.
There's way too much bravado out there. I'm not scared.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I truly learned in contracting. Like, because, that blimp was a giant target, so we got shot at a lot. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, I know.
And it's dumb to say you're not scared when you really are.
Right.
Right. And I remember in particular this one young kid. Most people to get a contract, you did at least an enlistment. This guy was barely 19 and got on this contract. And his base got mortared. And I remember the government lead telling the team lead, you need to coddle him like a baby. Tell him everything's going to be okay. And I was like, no, wrong answer. You need to punch him in the shoulder. Tell him, wow, that really sucked, didn't it? Because I'm scared too.
Yeah.
And let him know that it's okay to be scared. And then he's going to be a lot better off. And nobody did that to him. And that kid quit like 3 days later because he was so scared.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true.
And I don't blame him for being scared. I blame his teammates for not telling him it was okay to be scared.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's like the first time I remember I rode in a group ride with bicyclists, fast road bikes, and we are literally like 6 inches apart, shoulder to shoulder, going 25, 30 miles an hour.
One
That is
mistake.
that is scary because one person makes one mistake and we're all on the ground. Like,
Yeah, that's like riding in a velodrome.
yes, or on the velodrome. I've been on the velodrome before too in Switzerland, and it can get quite scary because the
My,
velodrome you don't have brakes on track bikes because it's
my
just
roommate can take level cycling to a whole nother sphere. He's a veteran as well, and he was in an accident on an airfield in Greece. He lost his eyesight, and now he
mm,
cycles. He's on a paracycling team, and he rides tandems. He doesn't steer; he's the motor. But he recently just finished first at some contest in somewhere near Huntington Beach in California,
yeah,
where they were racing in a velodrome with half blind. All the motors are blind, and all the pilots could see around a velodrome. Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
insane.
No, I've seen that before. I've
Those guys can't see what they're doing. But then again, I met the guy whitewater kayaking, so go figure.
Yeah, those guys, they just trust. I mean, you have to have a level of trust. You're like, I want to do this, so I got to find a person that I can actually trust.
But that's whether you have
That's,
a disability or not.
yeah. Oh,
That's
that's
the
very
biggest
true.
thing we learned in the Corps was how to trust one another.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and every one of these sports, whether you're climbing, whether you're taking a hike, here's a cool thing for the new hiker. Guess what? Most hikers are friendly. If
Yes.
something goes wrong, they're gonna help you.
That is so true. I think some people have like these bad thoughts about being in the forest alone.
Like they're gonna
Like,
run into territorial surfers from 1980.
yeah, they're going to run into like murderers, like serial killers and stuff. And that is not my experience at all. Like,
Oh,
everybody's super friendly. I mean,
that's why I love kayaking. It's a whole nother environment where, yeah, you have your individual part of the sport, but as soon as somebody wipes out kayaking, it's the biggest teamwork effort you've ever seen, and you don't
yeah.
have to know who the person is.
Yeah.
And that attitude carries off the water to everything everybody does at the campsites and everywhere else. And it's this super supportive, we're going to have fun and take care of each other attitude.
Isn't that kind of attitude like isn't that lacking sometimes like when you're not outdoors and you're like just in general public spaces? It feels like
Yeah.
that sort of attitude is lacking. Like if something was to happen and you were in the shopping center or something, nobody would give a crap or
Somebody would
like
just YouTube it and, you know,
yeah. But when you're outside like hiking or with a group of people doing something, like all of a sudden there's this community that gets
yeah,
built up right away quickly.
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing how being outside, I feel like in a different environment like that, really you really start seeing people's like how true they are uh, to themselves and other people, and not having all those distractions around that sometimes we have. Actually, what I see is the best of us comes out, not the worst of us. Yeah,
I'd agree. I'd agree. And that's that's motivation to get off the couch and get out your front door. Because
yeah,
if you're not getting out your front door, the only thing you're being exposed to is what the TV's telling you, and it's not true. There's friendly people out there doing fun things.
yeah. The social media, like YouTube, all that stuff, like you can fall into this algorithmic doom loop because if you watch one thing for a second that's negative, that algorithm will keep pushing that same topic to you over and over again.
It
And
does.
and it creates, like you said, a doom loop almost where you're just spending your time scrolling through this negative stuff, and that stuff affects you.
Big time.
Uh,
Big time.
yeah,
Yeah. It's our thoughts. Your thoughts influence everything, and if that's what you're feeding your thoughts, then you're gonna be feeling that same attitude in your head.
yeah. I give you an example. So I have to use social media because I'm starting a company. I started a company, and I was on TikTok, and I was getting a lot of stuff about starting a business, motivational speakers. It was hitting exactly what I wanted to look at by probably how much time I was spending on it. But I kept scrolling through this stuff and I noticed it was like 10 p.m. and I was time to go to bed. It took me 3 hours to get to sleep because that freaking loop was spinning through my head because I was on it all the way for like 2 hours before I went to bed. It was just torture.
We got a rule in our house: an hour and a half before bedtime is reading books, no TV, no phones,
Yeah. Yeah.
because otherwise people don't sleep.
Yeah. Because I noticed that too with myself. I won't sleep. If I get on a
Yeah.
doom scroll or something, like my sleep is screwed up.
Well,
And
and our former job doesn't help us. Tell them you don't wake up every now and then at like midnight. You're like, oh, it's time to send out a weather forecast.
Yeah, it's time to. It's yeah. No, my sleep got pretty screwed up at times. Not even that. Like I worked as an intel officer for a while in Al Assad for a security battalion. So just going out and patrolling, and then we had to go record all of the people lived in all the villages around the base and get them ID cards and stuff, so we know who was moving through the AO. And that was some late nights and some hairy situations we ran into out there with the police, the local police that aren't the they're fairly corrupt.
That's exactly why I'm laughing. I'm thinking about a particular cop that we had in Afghanistan, a new chief
Yeah,
police. And we also had a new special forces team. And I'm watching these guys on the camera, right? I mean, it's right outside our gate. And we're like, wow, the introduction seems to be taking a while. Normally, when a team goes in to say hi to the chief, that's a 15, 20-minute meeting.
yeah,
They
yeah,
came out like 40 minutes later with the chief in handcuffs.
yeah, yeah. They're
We're
pretty.
like, all right.
Yeah, it's just a bit. It's a bit different, but yeah. So no, I appreciate the talk, Aaron. But I think because I wouldn't have came up with that idea, or at least what I know to be true, which you just said, is through practice and repetition, is the way we kind of get rid of that fear of doing something.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly the kind of answer I was looking for in this interview. And it's so simple. Like,
And if you happen to be involved in something, and I'll use whitewater kayaking as an example, if there's stages you can progress in, when you progress to those higher stages, that anxiety you felt at the earlier stages is going to be gone. So go back and revisit those early stages. And
yeah,
that's something that can be done that most people, I think, ignore a lot in whitewater. And I've been doing that the past 2 seasons. Most of my friends are trying to step up to class 4 and class 5. I've been stepping it down to class 3, sometimes class 2s. And I'm like, let me see if I can go down this backwards.
yeah, okay,
And I'm playing. I'm just playing. The anxiety is gone. But if
yeah,
I was still trying to step my game up right now, my anxiety level would have never gotten a break. And I wouldn't realize that I actually do know what I'm doing out there. I
yeah,
just don't need to jump into the super extreme stuff and scare myself. You can
yeah.
take it easy and have fun. You don't have to. You don't have to be sponsored by Red Bull to have a good time outdoors.
Isn't that what happens to us all, man? Like, I took bicycling way too far, way
Oh,
too
yeah.
far, quite a few times. Like, I remember one day I rode 24 hours without any sleep, and I decided to ride like
Oh, my God.
197 miles on my bike through the Bavarian forest of Germany, like, just in the Czech Republic, out in the middle of nowhere.
I remember when you did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but then I go back and think about that, and yeah, it was kind of fun at the time, but totally not necessary, man. I
Right?
totally, I totally could have stopped and had some schnitzel or something at a town and taken it a bit easier and had way more fun. So I have to pull myself back because sometimes I'm like, oh no, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. That competitiveness comes out, and being outdoors doesn't have to be competitive. It could be just,
That's my favorite thing about it. It was rock climbing in Japan that completely changed my perspective. I was very competitive even as a sergeant. And my buddy Brian and I were rock climbing, and we'd been failing on this one spot for weeks. And I finally made that one move, hooked around, got my foot a little bit further, and I got further on the rock than Brian did. And in my head, all I could think was, I beat Brian.
yeah,
And you know what Brian was doing? Brian's belaying me for one thing, and he's cheering me on. He's going, "Yeah, good job, man." And I thought for a minute, like, "Where's the scoreboard? There's nobody in the forest but me and Brian.
yeah,
There's nobody. Like, who am I competing with? My best
yes,
friend, you know?" And
yes.
like, and I just kind of stopped doing things with scoreboards after that.
Yeah, scoreboard's got to go down. I think in your twenties, it's good. In your
Sure,
teens,
sure,
yeah,
sure.
push it. But once you get past that, it's
Once you're past draft age,
yeah, exactly. You got to enjoy it more. You got to find ways to enjoy it. So that's at least what I try to do. Man, you got your pups there. So
yeah.
yeah, thanks for coming on. I know this is kind of
Thanks for
like
having me. This is great.
yeah, having a quick conversation. But yeah, I'll do an outro here, and then we'll put the video up, and it's kind of unedited. Like, I don't even care that there's people walking around. Like, this is just, it's just, I just seeing how people react to things.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to us chatter there about adventures with Aaron States. And Aaron, myself, I've known Aaron for quite some time. Very adventurous person. But I think the key thing I wanted to take away from this talk with Aaron is about overcoming fear. And like I knew he would have a good answer to that, and he answered it right away, which is practicing something and repetition usually helps you quell that fear of doing something new when you go on an adventure. And then the other thing he talked to a little bit about was safety, is just thinking about the safety aspect of things when you're actually doing something. And safety could look like anything, like if you're hiking in the Rocky Mountains alone, you have bear spray. Or if you're on a bicycle riding on a road and you're bike touring, maybe you have reflective gear that you're wearing. Or you're wearing more visible stuff when you're near a roadway. Those are all things that make adventure more easy and safer for you. And repeating that and doing small things like either just leaving your house and going for a walk is a preparatory phase for becoming more adventurous in your life and doing more adventurous things, which gets you out of the house, gets you off YouTube or TikTok or whatever it is, and brings more fulfillment to your life. That's all we're trying to do here at Grava. So if you want to shop or support Grava in any way, you can go to gograva.com. We have these hats now made in Sheridan, Wyoming. You can buy this black, it's a 50-50 super soft polyester cotton shirt with the Grava logo and this Grava symbol on the back. And we have bicycle bags that we're just beginning to sell. And you can buy a Founders shirt and become part of the Founders program, which the certain founders are going to be given access to. I'm just giving them free bicycle bags to go through our prototype and testing process so we understand our designs better. So thanks again. Hopefully somebody got something out of this. This is my longer interview that we did. But yeah, that's about it. Get out of the grind. Go have an adventure, everybody. Bye.